Welcome. We have here this morning Matt Nicosia, the Vivakor CEO and Chairman. Matt, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm doing well, thank you.
It's great to have you here, Matt. Let's start off at a very high level here. Can you give us an overview of Vivakor? What does the company do, and what are you guys focused on?
Excellent. So VIVKor is a socially responsible developer, acquirer of clean energy technologies and environmental solutions. We're primarily focused on soil remediation. What that really means is we find ways to extract natural resources from the earth and do so in an environmentally friendly process.
Outstanding. Okay, let's talk about your industry a little bit. How do you see the circular carbon space developing over the next 5 or 10 years? Where do you see the roadmap for the future going here?
Excellent question. In fact, I believe that the circular carbon group, the group that focuses on how do we take waste and make waste usable, is the only way I feel that we can transition long term into a better environment. We see not only in the soil side, which we're focusing on, but I believe you're going to see groups that are focusing on how to clean water, air, other types of contaminations, how we make those usable. And our objective, and we believe this both through the carbon credits, both through infrastructure credits and goals of governments and the population as a whole, we believe that these circular carbon companies, such as ourselves, will be in high demand because the next way to have a future to live on is have a future that is going to be clean and that we're going to clean up the mess which we've made.
Got it. Okay, and that might be a good pivot point into the next question here. But when you're talking about setting things right and doing what you do, what sets Vivakor apart from competitors in the same space that work where you guys are?
Excellent question. So what sets us apart are our patents that are specifically around our processes that we've invented that allow us to separate both a natural resource from the soil and make both usable. Some of our competitors either destroy the soil or they destroy the natural resource. In this case, we'll call it a hydrocarbon and an oil, and make both of them unusable. In our process, we make both the soil and the hydrocarbons usable, then thus creating that circular carbon economy. Because if the hydrocarbons aren't usable and you can't put them in roads, you can't use them for transportation, you haven't really made it circular. You've basically just destroyed it.
Got it. Okay, now in your opinion, would you say that circular carbon solutions are an easier solution to implement than switching to renewable energy in the immediate future? And adding to that, there's a second part. Do you believe the energy sector will adopt these types of solutions over renewable energy? But if so, why would they take that tactic?
Excellent question. Now, the circular carbon piece, I do believe, is an intermediary step to that transition to long term. We'll call it where we're using strictly renewables, whether it be energy from waves, from wind, solar, and so forth. There still is a lot of technology to be developed around the renewable side. So in the meantime, how do we take advantage of those through that intermediary step with circular carbon economy? With taking waste such as Vivakor, what we're doing and making both the roads and transportation fuels, absolutely, that will be that intermediary step. And will energy companies actually embrace that long term? I think we're going to see a major functional obsolescence happen. I believe over the next 10, 15 years, you're going to see some that will adapt and some that will fall. And that adaptation, which is going to be a combination of both capital structure, resources available, and worldwide demand, we'll see how fast that transition happens to renewables. We're a big fan of renewables. We like to power those and push those as well and continue to invest in those. But a lot of technology has to be developed to bring down a cost structure, which allows for the third world countries of the world and the lesser developed countries to take advantage of those, which can cause a lot of that pollution. Yes, we can lead in first world countries. We can lead in doing so, but there needs to be a worldwide acceptance for that to happen. And we believe that this circular carbon pitch, which we're doing, this piece of how do we clean waste to make usable, is that stopgap. And in fact, might be a long-term solution until the cost of renewables is down low enough to have that transition happen to that. So excellent question. And we see that in a phase. First phase will be the circular carbon or handling of the waste product, and then transitioning into renewables. But I don't see, part of your second part question, I do not see all companies adapting. I see few adapting with that functional obsolescence coming.
Understood. And then any major milestones that Vivakor wants to look out for over the next 12 to 24 months? Anything the investor audience should have their eye on in that term?
Excellent. So Vivakor, every time we launch a remediation processing center, every time we put one of those in place, now we are cleaning an additional 20 tons an hour of material. Now we are adding continued revenue to our top line, revenue to our bottom line, because right now with this process of taking waste and separating, making both the soil and the oil usable, we have a economic opportunity, in fact, a feasible opportunity to build on what we're doing at Vivakor. So keep in mind, watch as those machines are deployed. Watch as contracts are entered into other areas around the world or expanded based on the Vivakor technology. For example, right now, oil, and some people don't know this, even though we are a waste remediation company, the end product we sell happens to be a asphalt product, asphalt cement. Since the war in Russia or in Ukraine by the Russians, asphalt cement prices have risen as much as 30%. So we are a direct beneficiary, unfortunately, of the conflict. But at the same time, there's more waste available for us to clean. So we benefit from high oil prices as well as we clean up the environment. So keep in mind, watch for when larger contracts are introduced. As each remediation processing center is launched, just for example, in Utah, on top of the oil sales that went from on a projected annual basis from as much as 5 million in annual revenue went to 7.5 thanks to existing oil prices. In the Middle East and in other areas around the world that we clean up, those have only increased our revenues as much as 30% to existing oil prices. Obviously, from a renewable standpoint, you want high oil prices to force adoption and into other renewable pieces. So all of those things seem to benefit Vivakor, but most importantly, how are we cleaning up the environment and creating a financial return to our investors and creating that shareholder equity, which is both not just shareholder equity, but community equity as we extend the length of the earth by cleaning up these waste spots that are all over the place. So watch over the next year, machines deployed, contracts entered into, and large expansion. We see the next 5 years of constant expansion just on the amount of waste that needs to be cleaned up.
Understood. Okay, and looking ahead, you kind of covered a lot of it already, but what can our audience expect from Vivakor? How is the 2022 roadmap shaping up?
2022 is shaping up phenomenal. We're seeing great expansion, both on the business development side into new projects. We're seeing some great deployment of systems. So our goal by year end is to have have systems deployed both in Utah, Kuwait, and our remediation projects around, for example, Houston and Dallas and so forth. I'd like to see us have a minimum 4 of these systems deployed and running by year end. There could be a lot more than that, but just from what we've already accomplished, already paid for, put in place, we want to see 4 of these systems deployed this year. And next year, we'd like to see as much as 20 systems deployed by the end of next year. Constant deployment of systems means more oil is cleaned up, more soil is cleaned, and larger revenues for the company.
Amazing. Matt Nicosia from Vivakor, thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of what we should be looking for and what's coming up in the future.
Thank you.